Well, the Oregon State and Washington State to the Big 12 or ACC or any Power Four conference rumors have kicked back into high gear lately. But is there really any hope for the Beavers or the Cougars? And honestly, most think the ACC is done anyway. But is there actually reason for ACC optimism? My guest today, Jon Wilner from the San Jose Mercury News and the Wilner Hotline, actually thinks that there is. Plus, he'll address whether there is any truth to the ACC Utah rumors that came about just a couple of months ago. Big 12 fans, if you haven't yet subscribed to my newsletter, the Big 12 Open for Business newsletter, subscribe by clicking the link in the description or going to ofbnews.com. Be the smartest Big 12 fan in your group text and subscribe to ofbnews.com. Well, you're now doing some covering of the ACC, obviously, because you have Cal and Stanford, going to the ACC. Do you have a good, like if we were going back to the line, what would you set the line at right now for ACC survival? The situation going on that they have with Florida State and Clemson?
Yeah, that's I certainly don't know the details there as well as I did the Pac-12. But I do think a betting line helps fans, just imagine in their head what the situation is, which is why I started that Pac-12 survival line in the summer of 2022. And I would probably put the ACC survival line, right around 4 or 5 points. Again, that's like 60% probability. So it's not really, it could go either way. I really believe that. And the ACC is similar, I think, to the Pac-12 in that there is a scenario in which if the big brands leave, the rest of the conference could stay together, right? But the difference, one of the differences is the schools that are itching to leave the ACC with the lawsuits, Clemson, Florida State, are not the most valuable schools in the ACC, right? North Carolina is the prize. So in the Pac-12, that would have been like Oregon and Washington filing a lawsuit or trying to leave, and USC kind of biding its time behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, honestly, I don't know enough about the politics within North Carolina as to what would happen if the grant of rights is broken by Clemson, Florida State. Does North Carolina leave? Do they have to take NC State with them? Exactly what happens, because North Carolina is such an integral part of the state of North Carolina in a way that USC is certainly not a part of the state of California in terms of higher education. It's different. I just don't know.
Well, what is the best case scenario as you see it now? And this is obviously kind of related here to the ACC and what's going on, but for Oregon State and Washington State, as we, continue to see like rumors, people, hey, is the Big 12 possible? Is the ACC possible? And I understand. Look, I'm a K-State guy. I feel terrible for the position that Washington State and Oregon State are in because I felt that very closely twice back in like 2010 and then just a couple of years ago in 2021. So I understand why there might be some wishful thinking there, but what's realistic as far as the best case scenario for them?
Well, I think right now they're working on trying to come up with scheduling agreements, at least for the 25 season and maybe beyond that. I don't see a path to that for them into the Big 12 as long as the current structure stays in place. They are rooting for chaos, right? I mean, they are, unfortunately, this is what realignment is so Darwinian, right? The best case for them is for other schools to feel pain. I mean, they want the ACC to break up because that could create a pathway for them into the ACC. I mean, if Clemson and Florida State, North Carolina were to leave, say, ACC wants to stay together, but they need more schools, then maybe they try to add Washington State and Oregon State, give them additional Pacific time zone, travel partners for Cal and Stanford. Or there's some kind of reconfiguration involving the ACC and the Big 12, and they're involved in that. I don't know, but I think that their best, if not only, chance to get into a Power Four conference is for the ACC to fracture. It's to some degree or another. I mean, there's probably a scenario in which the ACC fractures, and like the original schools try to stay together in some kind of Eastern Seaboard configuration, and Cal and Stanford get cut loose, and SMU gets cut loose, and then all of a sudden there's some schools there for Washington State and Oregon State to reform a conference with.
As rumors always tend to get very crazy during realignment, we did have one. There was a retired New York Post columnist who floated for a moment there a couple months ago. Hey, Utah actually is interested in the ACC at this point. And I guess, the seeds of doubt are enough there for some, because we know that they did not want to go to the Big 12, which makes perfect sense. They were doing a great job in the Pac-12 and going to Rose Bowls and winning the league, even with USC, Oregon, and Washington all still there. But what do you feel like Washington, what is the temperature rather of Utah right now as they enter the Big 12 and where they're at? And did you ever buy into any kind of wandering eye discontent coming into the league?
No, I mean, I know that columnist and respect him, and he's a great guy. I don't want to necessarily get into the details, but that was not credible from the get-go. Absolutely at any level. I would frame Utah in this way. Only left the Pac-12 because there was no choice. Pac-12 was great for Utah athletics and Utah as an institution. Utah had no interest in leaving until they didn't have an option to stay. Joining the Big 12, looking forward to the experience, and no interest at all in going anywhere else. I mean, if the Big 10 came calling or the SEC came calling, of course they'd be interested. But no, they don't have any interest in or any kind of wandering eye. They're heading into the Big 12 as proud and enthusiastic members. But I will say that at every one of the 10 departing campuses, there's regret and remorse. They didn't want this to happen. They wish the Pac-12 could have found a way to stay together, either with all 12 or with the 10, because it was a good league and it served the student athletes well. And everybody is scratching their head over how this whole thing is going to work for the Olympic sports, right? I mean, that's no secret. It doesn't make any sense for most of the Olympic sports athletes at most of these 10 schools to be in the conferences that they are now in. And I think everybody hopes that there's some kind of reconstruction that makes more sense logistically and financially for those sports. And everyone just feels like, football is its own beast. And the way everything's structured may work for football. Maybe it works for men's basketball, but everything else just needs to be regionalized. And that's true for Big 12, ACC, Big 10. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, right? For swimming and softball and all those sports.
Well, look, I think if we're talking about what's happening on the field this year in the Big 12 for the four newcomers to the conference, 3 of the 4 are really fascinating to me. I mean, Utah with Cam Rising coming back, obviously they're the favorite for a reason there. We know about, Coach Prime, Dion, how much of a lightning rod he is. Then Arizona, and maybe that's a good place to start here, the Arizona discussion, because I did an anonymous player survey at Big 12 Media Days, talked to 20 players. They picked Arizona to win the league, and Arizona's got a lot of high-end talent, but they also have a coach that's new to the Power 4 level, and they're changing conferences, which to me is just a lot for me to think that they would actually win the league. But as somebody who saw them last year and all the talent that they have, how do you feel like Arizona is going to fare here in year one?
Would I be surprised if Arizona won the league? No, I didn't pick them. I think Utah is the team to beat, but I would certainly put Arizona in the group of 4 or 5 schools that could win it. I mean, parity is the Big 12's calling card. It's the strength and the weakness of the conference. The thing that I wonder about Arizona, yes, there's a new coach. You can have all the same key guys coming back, but every year is different. The team dynamics are different from year to year. And part of that is expectations, right? Nobody picked Arizona to do anything last year. Now they're coming in with a lot of hype. A lot of those guys are thinking, I got the NFL draft coming next spring. They got people in their ear on campus. They got NIL consideration. I mean, expectations change a lot of things. And just because you got the same quarterback and the same receiver doesn't mean you have the same chemistry. And I'll be curious to see how they deal with that, right? I mean, they got a target. There was no target last year. but they got a target on him this year.
Where do you fall on the Colorado thing, the Coach Prime thing? Because I've been saying I think they're like a 7-5-ish sort of team this year, and I feel like that gets me hate from people who think that I should be saying that they're going to win 11 games, and it gets me hate from people who think that I should be saying they're going to win 3 games, and it's a total disaster. So it's almost like a no-win situation, no matter what you say.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get into throwing darts, right? I would say 6-6 feels about right to me. And I didn't think they were going to be very good last year. And even when they had that great start, I didn't think they were going to be very good because they didn't have what you need on the lines of scrimmage. I think they'll probably be better there. I think Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback. I don't know. Anywhere from 7-5 to 5-7 makes sense to me. Everybody needs to just kind of sit back and enjoy the Deion Sanders experience instead of just getting, pulling out their teeth one way or the other. They certainly have a way of generating passionate responses that program does. I just think it's fascinating to watch the whole thing unfold.
I was literally just watching this before he hopped on, so you may not have had a chance to see it yet, but I know he's had some uncomfortable interactions with reporters before, but today there were a couple of them. One was just a guy who was from CBS, like Denver, and he has some beef with CBS and wouldn't take a question with them. The other is Sean Keeler, who I know they've had some issues there, but just not taking questions from reporters and press conferences, going back at them. How do you feel about, as a reporter and a longtime vet of the industry, the way that he handles some of that?
Yeah, he's had some rough stretches, I think. To me, it's all about how does it reflect on the institution, right? He is by far the most visible employee of the University of Colorado, right? What he does in public reflects on the institution. When he does stuff that doesn't look good, I wonder, to what degree are members of the school thinking, oh boy, we can't have that happen again, right? Now, he's got a pretty good leash because of everything he has done with ticket sales. And even applications for admissions are way up at Colorado. But if they don't have a good year, then some of the stuff that people are kind of turning a blind eye to is going to resonate a little bit differently. He needs to, he's certainly had his moments. I didn't think that the taking receipts thing went off very well last year. But it is what it is. It's on Colorado. Should have known all this was coming when they hired him. We'll see how it plays out. Talent tolerance, right? If he's winning, the leash is a lot longer.
Jon, before I let you go, where can everybody find your stuff? I know not only are you writing, but you've got a podcast, and obviously you're on Twitter. Just let everybody know the best places to follow you.
Yeah, well, we did a massive rebranding, and we went from Pac-12 Hotline to Wilner Hotline, which is Wilner Hotline is my Twitter handle. It was pretty simple. So WilnerHotline.com is the best place. Wilner Hotline on Twitter. Podcast, Canzano and Wilner. And we are talking about a lot of these kind of issues. We just had Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gould on. She talked about some issues with Washington State and Oregon State that have some resonance with ACC and Big 12 potentially. So, everything, my whole view of this, Jon, is everything affects everybody these days. The conferences are so interconnected at so many levels that you can find a way to make any topic relevant for almost any fan base because so much of it has a ripple effect one way or the other. And that's increasing, right? With private equity and with the House settlement, the schools are all getting more and more entangled competitively and financially.